We all know that feeling of being a kid and make-believing in the backyard or with a friend or alone, and it takes you over. It scares you a little bit, and it makes you feel alert and in wonder. That feeling that we all have touched someplace in our life is something that I didn't let go of and have encouraged and somehow convince people to hire me to do for a living.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Ben Foster is an actor. He sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
Is there a typical first step that you take at the start of your prep work? You get the script, what's your first step?
It's reading. You sit down and you read the words, and I've read cinematographers have a different process. Say, well, I never write a note until the second read, and then I talk to the director. And with me, as soon as an impulse comes up, I'll just write it, scribble it into a script. If there's a picture, an image, a song, a reference, a question mark. Generally, to my experience, it's what needs to be cut. Is there something that I connect with at that time that feels like time well spent considering? Mm-hmm. And that could be, do I need a job? Do I like the filmmaker? Is there something about the character that I know something about or something that I know nothing about and have a curiosity for? So it's all up for grabs. It's being available in that read. And for me, I know within 10 pages whether or not I'm connecting with the material. And I don't like reading scripts, truth be told. I don't care for the way that most of them are structured. Yeah. So when you read a good one, it's and it holds you. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's such a privilege. That's time well spent. Mm-hmm. Like Hell or High Water. I was told that there was a great script circulating town, and there was a potential for this role. And I had said, I'm not working again this year. I'm taking time off. He said, well, you really should read it. And I was grumpy, and I was like, I'll read the first 10 pages and throw it out the window. Mm-hmm. And I could have read it in one sitting. It was like, I need this. I know this man. I know everything about him. I'm ready. Let's go. Mm-hmm. I know Taylor Sheridan's script was gorgeous, and Deborah Granick's script for Leave No Trace. That hit a couple weeks after my wife and I found out that we were having a baby girl. Mm-hmm. And this story, I didn't know what it was about when I read it. I just sat down knowing that it was Deborah, who I was a fan of. I didn't know it was about a father and daughter, and I just, burst into tears. Mm-hmm. And that's rare to feel. So it felt like a great time to go ask these questions with her.
Mm-hmm. I like the way you put that, ask these questions. It's like, so it seems like you are not afraid of not knowing.
That's the joy.
But isn't that, it sounds scary though.
Well, like a journalist or
yeah.
any I think it's probably in the DNA of saying, why? Who's that? What's that about? I know nothing about that. How exciting. The luck of the job is getting the opportunity to speak to people who've lived similar lives, that are an authority on this experience. Say, how do you get up in the morning? That's a great pleasure in this life, is to ask, how do you do that? What does that feel like? And then learn as much as I can by someone who does this for a living or has, get it into my bones so I don't have to think about it, and then experience these questions through a dramatic narrative. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful way to learn about things.
And when you say get it in your bones so you don't have to think about it.
When we have to reach in our mind for an answer to something, it might be there, but it takes effort. What I mean in the bones is that it's a body of knowledge that I have access to. It's not something that I have to intellectualize, figure out. I've done that. That's prep. That's all prep is insulating so that on the day when the cameras are rolling, the impulses and the energetic exchanges between the day, the actor, the material can be a living thing. The same way that I imagine musicians come into a room and somebody hits a melody or a beat, and you feel it and you offer a response. Mm-hmm. And that kind of exchange is the drug of the job.
Mm-hmm. Like, this is a teenage girl that you're with in Leave No Trace, Thomasin McKenzie. When you say yes to this, if this girl isn't good, you got real problems. I mean, if you can't connect, if you have to coach this girl, which could have been a possibility. Turns out you didn't have to. You say you didn't even feel like a mentor to her, which is amazing, and you can feel that in the movie. But what happens when you're not connecting with somebody, or they just haven't done their work?
It's nice to work with people that you connect with. Like any job, it's not always the case. We can point blame, and one can get frustrated that perhaps it doesn't have the kind of exchange or exploration that you'd hope for. That's okay. One just has to return to the make-believe element inside yourself. Connect with what you connect with. And as long as you can return to center with love, something will show up. Being dependent on someone else, you can't be. Do you hope that you have someone you can really jam with and play with? Absolutely. In the case of Leave No Trace, though, Deborah, our director, writer, said, I found this kid and I think she's really special. She's from New Zealand. And when she's trying to do an English or American English accent, it almost sounds like a slight speech impediment, but there's a quality that feels very true, and I think she's really special. And I came in suspicious, of course, to your point. Mm-hmm. And she showed me a tape. I think it was even on a phone, Deborah, on one of her early walks. 2 seconds where it was like, no, that's it, that's her. Yeah, you just know. You just knew. She has a light on inside her, and it's you see it in the film, and it was apparent in that video. She self-taped herself with a rabbit in New Zealand, and she's the real thing.
Can you talk about the connecting rituals you guys did? Hugging each other for a couple minutes before the scene, hearing each other's heartbeats and similar things like that. I found it so interesting.
That was Tom. That all came from Tom and Tom's mom. Her parents are filmmakers and wonderful, wonderful humans as well. It was a Maori ritual that was called a hungi, I think is how you pronounce it, which translates to breath of life. And Deborah brought it up to me at first, and she said, Tom wants to do this ritual with you, this breath of life ritual. And immediately, every alarm in my body's like, absolutely not. I am not doing
just because of the semantics of what you said?
The semantics, this day and age that we're in, it just like, and why are you telling me? And just kind of got my hair up because I didn't understand it. And that's just, I'm protective of my stuff, and I don't want to put it on other people. There's some actors who just want to just piss on all the trees, and I get that, but do it in your own time.
Yeah.
Go mark your territory, but I'm not your territory in that way.
Yeah.
So I kind of put it off, and Tom never brought it up to me directly, and we were still feeling kind of I liked her immediately, and that was fine. But there was this buzzing thought that had come into that something wanted to happen that Tom thought would be a good idea, or Tom's mom, and the communication wasn't super in the introduction of this concept, early days, until it was day one of filming. Tom and I had been in the woods for 2 weeks doing intensive primitive skills, and I had learned a bit of them and taught some to her, and those task-oriented call it recess. It was great. Explorations together were all the rehearsal we would have needed. And we're about to roll on day one. We were shooting in sequence. We're shooting in Portland. And I asked Tom, I said, well, I've heard about this thing. Tell me about this thing you want to do. Deborah mentioned there was a ritual, she said, in the way that she does, very direct, very clear. She said, yes, it's about sharing breath of life. And all it is that we hug. And it's for a certain amount of time, and we have a witness, and that was her caretaker at the time, who's going to watch and time it. So it's safe for you and me. And all we're going to do is just breathe and listen to each other breathe. I said, well, is that something you'd like to do? And she said, yes, I would, if you're comfortable with it. I said, yeah, okay. So let's do it right before filming. She said, all right. So it's okay, getting ready for the roll. Yeah, see what it's like. Okay, hold on. And three of us took off the set, and the caretaker looked at her watch. She goes, you can begin. And we hugged each other. And we held each other. And I was struck by how ready I was to be done with the hug after 5 seconds. Sure. I mean, let's count out 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3.
Done right there.
4. Done. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. A minute of holding. And then the heart starts racing, the mind goes somewhere, and you kind of want to get out of there or escape or look around, get distracted. The monkey brain part of the mind started.
Sure.
But a minute crawled by, and we got into a breathing pattern where the heartbeat felt somehow in line. And I mean this physically. Your breath naturally wants to match and meet and weave. And then the minute was up, and we said, okay, your time is up, and we released each other. We looked at each other, and when we looked at each other, we smiled. It's like something happened. Something had been transmitted, understood that she was safe. I was going to make it a safer place for her, and she would do the same with me. And it went without words, and that was it. And we went into the first shot of the film with that energetic intention, that kind of, we just settled into something. And there were, I think, 2 other times throughout the shooting where, we would ask each other. She's like, I want something like to provoke each other, to get something off camera. We should do a homie for this one right before. Like, yes, we should do that. We watched again, and it just bonded us in a way that I've never experienced before, and it was beautiful. I encourage people, hold the ones they love for a little bit longer than is comfortable, and make that okay.
Yeah,
I think that's something worth feeling about.
Oh yeah, I mean, but I could just imagine that this would work with people that have to connect in a scene of any kind, and if there's no time to have done the connecting work that you would normally do beforehand.
It's accelerated intimacy in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And the ritual is that we all share this one thing. The one thing we all share, air. So let's breathe together. So simple, ancient technique of just be with the person. And that's all work should be at the end of the, for my, the most exciting moments of creation are those moments when at work are being with each other. It's not I nailed that monologue, that scene. Never. That's horseshit. It's, were we there together?
Is the word mystical something that you're allergic to?
Maybe out loud.
Good. That's what okay, good. Because I sense a mystical thing to your work. I mean, I'm hearing it right now. And yeah, mystical is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Just the way you answered that, you know what I mean. So forget the word now. But you're operating on another level with the material and with your instrument.
I like to do things with other people.
Was it always like that? Or did you try to do it? Or were you another kind of person that was working in another way and it wasn't working out? Did you grow into this approach?
I think we all know that feeling of being a kid and make-believing in the backyard or with a friend or alone, and it takes you over, and it scares you a little bit, and it makes you feel alert and in wonder. So I suppose that feeling that we all have touched someplace in our life is something that I didn't let go of and have encouraged and somehow convinced people to hire me to do for a living. And it's creating an environment that allows for that same wonder. So I don't know, when it gets into the mystical and it does become dangerous because you don't want to scare the muse. So in that answer is I think enough of the answer that perhaps that there's certain things that you just don't want to articulate because the analytical mind has a tendency to try to put these ideas into categories that, to my experience, shuts off the emotional connectivity. So you can kind of talk around it. I found that I feel dirty when I speak too much about those pseudo-scientific or spiritual aspects. Though I feel a lot inside, I find personally, if I'm gonna talk about it, those frightening, tender, superstitious moments or elements in my own heart, to talk about it in an athletic way. And actually shifting the course and saying, we can talk about the same thing in a much safer way that doesn't feel like it's exploiting something, by saying, look at sports psychology. And one reads about the world's greatest athletes. Let's take Kobe Bryant as an example. He will visualize, he will walk himself through how the stadium smells, seeing where the ball would go. And the more vivid one's imaginary life becomes, it can shift into reality. And the science that we have that if you think it shows up the same in the brain if you're actually seeing it in real life. So if we're looking at that, I think an athletic point of view is a little easier to kind of touch on these elements, because it's a sensorial muraling of creating an event that will happen.
a quote from Deborah Granick about you. He's a very committed, in-depth kind of actor. He's not afraid of getting muddy or emotionally entangled. Someone who may be about to direct you for the first time might get intimidated when they hear that. You're such a artist, powerhouse of your own thing, and they don't know how to enter in the relationship with you. Mm. But you don't hear people saying that have directed you. So what is it that you need from a director?
Prep, which is a lot of the joy of it, is working intimately one-on-one with a director. Mm. I love that. It's such a pleasure to work with somebody who's ideally somebody I admire already, or I'm excited about how they're seeing this story, their dream, and how ours can weave together. Sitting with this person page by page. I enjoy that. Not all directors enjoy that. Not all actors want that either. But if I'm going to work with somebody, I want to go page by page and just play with it. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean read it in a performative way, but just talk about, what is this scene about? What are we trying to get at?
This is long before the set.
This is long before the set.
Yeah.
And just sharing stories. Be like, that reminds me of so-and-so. That director will share something with me. And you create, ideally, a shorthand on the script and for shooting. This is about getting to know somebody really quickly, intimately, about your deepest, darkest. And I want to know that I feel safe with that person to explore these emotionally confusing themes of a film, which is what drama is. And that way, on set, ideally, we're not having a whole lot of chat. Mm-hmm. We've done it.
Yeah.
And it's like, the thing, and you're like, I get the thing. And it's just, it can be a look, and I know what that person is getting at, and we may not see it the same way, but we can get after it together. When I've had difficulty with directors, it's generally those that think that they have to over-direct, which is just sometimes. I try to give this example, which was, it's like I'm going into it, might be just the most pretentious nonsense, but the way that I pictured it was, I'm going into a cave, and you've got a belt around me and a rope that goes all the way outside the cave, and I'm kind of bumping into things. Mm-hmm. There's stalactites, stalagmites, there are holes, there's a bat, and this is my internal thing that I'm trying to get through to something, and the best directors just know how to give a little bit of a tug. But I've found when it's where it might get, it's unfortunate when a director can't give you a little bit of room to go find something and keeps pulling you out and wanting to talk about it when you're in there already.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is getting ready for the excavation of something. And I found the best ones, the most powerful directors, are those that know how to, drive a fast car well. Which is, you go left, the car will go left. Mm. You want to go right, we'll go right. It's riding a horse. You think left, a horse will go left. Mm-hmm. If you're not looking where you're going, the horse doesn't know where to go. If you keep pulling on the reins and kicking the horse, it's going to be confused. So I'm trying to get into a state of emotional availability, focus, attentiveness on the set in order to allow something to transpire in a controlled environment that's caught on film. It's been pre-planned, we've circled our target, but once we're in there, too much of the talk is absolutely emotional erectile dysfunction. It just kills your boner. You're like, I was ready to go, sweetheart, I was ready to go, but you just wanted to talk about it the whole time. It's porn, and then it's just bad porn, and then you got to do all the bad, and that's a heartbreaker.
There's so many great analogies there, but the best one is the cave, because I feel like, just as a small-time director myself, I'm assuming the actor is afraid of the dark in there. and I'm afraid of the dark in there, and I'm thinking that they need me to be pulling or, in there, and if you just aren't afraid, if your trusty actor is maybe afraid of the dark, but they're going to be okay in there, feeling around, like that's such a good analogy. Like, I feel like that can help people.
Well, give them confidence. That's half of it. It's trust the people you hired to get after it. And if you're still pulling that, if you're still tugging on the rope halfway through the film, you probably cast the wrong person, or you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Very simply, give each person, empower them with the quest of discovery, rather than the fear of them not getting something that you have in your head in a particular way, as many filmmakers, and rightly so, have in their head, the same way an actor does. But the day informs a lot of it, and if your prep work has been thorough, you really shouldn't have to chat too much about it. You should just, it's like, well, try that tunnel. Take a right there. Mm-hmm. Take a moment in this and listen to the cave.
Right.
To continue with that line of thinking.
Right.
And that's when it's most pleasurable, because then you both discovered something, and then you engage together in this. You went somewhere together. You didn't show how smart you were, what you proved anything. It's just, hey, look where we got. We found these things. What a treasure. We get to do this together. I love that. That's beautiful.
I really think that Galveston is not getting the attention it deserves. I think this is another young actor you worked with where you guys hit things in there that I was really impressed by.
Elle Fanning, she's tops. She's tops. We shot Galveston first, and then went right into prep on Leave No Trace. They just came out in reverse order. They were. It wasn't a conscious thing. I read the script. I'd seen Melanie's film Breathe, which I think is a spectacular movie about adolescence, and it was playing with a genre and a trope in a way that felt, though a throwback film, it could play with a toxic masculine identity that wasn't able, that we were actually refusing. Mm-hmm. We were gonna limit that part of him, and that was exciting. So working with two female directors back to back, again, to me it was, and working with great younger leading ladies in a non-sexual capacity, was not on purpose. It just happened that way, and it was more about just working with people that I like to watch and what they do. Mm-hmm. So I came in just as I like what Melanie creates, and Elle and Deborah and Tom. So I just felt I was just working with people that I admired.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the other things.
It has like a 20-year jump. When you see that and you know you have to jump 20 years in a performance, how do you approach that differently?
It's a strange leap. It's not a different character, it's the same character. How do you add or subtract time on a person's internal and physical life? Box number one to check on that was, who's doing the makeup?
Yeah.
Because as good as I want to be at times, I don't know if I could do that without a lot of support in another department.
Yeah.
And I had Jamie Kellman, who I worked with, who did the makeup effects for Lone Survivor. Mm-hmm. And that was an incredible build of 24-hour 5 stages of trauma. And he tracked it, and we got along very well. We tried to work together again, and then he came on board for this. I knew I was going to be in great hands, because he's a pro. I'm doing one right now with him. Probably collaborated more with him than anybody else. to design that look. So as long as, because if it looks right, my job is a lot easier. So that was the main concern.
Do you literally fill in those 20 years for yourself?
It depends on the film.
Yeah.
Depends on how much prep time you have. Depends on how intuitively you feel connected to those values. And sometimes it feels that we have to do more work than maybe feels supported by the script. If there's just more questions or it just feels like too much mystery, then one will build and film specific. For this, and more recently, I think just being a person who's been alive on this planet, these feelings feel more accessible. I mean, I can relate to some days just feel like 20 years later. I just know what that feels like, and if I know what if I can just feel that, then I don't have to think too hard about it, and I don't have to build all of it out. And some other times the build out can sometimes get in the way, where it's you can be entrapped by, you get stuck in your own prep, rather than you've created a foundation to respond to. But they're basic things you go through body, like how does the body, it is like, okay, what intuitively what happens in 20 years? Let's say he's hard drinking, he's been in and out of prison. What do I know about that? And you start going through, what do you know about a long sentence for his kind of crime? And so I might watch those documentaries on life in prison, life behind bars, just to start creating a mental landscape, a vernacular of experience. And say, okay, well, what do I have that I know that I could emphasize? Well, I know that this particular part of my body is hurting already at my age. Let's add 20 years to that. And let's use the shortest door possible to accelerate those, a lack of mobility. Where are those places in the body that have shut out feeling? And some of those things have to be intellectualized, and some of them just come, and if you're quiet enough inside, the impulses will be there. And as long as one is respectful of those, it's usually as good as anything that you had to do the hard math on.
Yeah. Can you just tell me why you took performance-enhancing drugs for the program? I mean, the whole Dustin Hoffman thing, staying up for days for the Marathon Man, and Laurence Olivier saying, why don't you just try acting, my boy, or something like that.
He was running around a warehouse or something. Like yeah. Just like, come on, man.
But you have there's a method to your madness here. What was it?
I wanted to know what it felt like.
Well, you played a killer in Galveston. You didn't kill anybody, did you?
No. There are certain personal ethics that I hold true for myself, and I have to balance
just come
those
out
out.
with it. You killed someone to see what it felt like. Just come on, man.
So I was nowhere near Reno. It's whatever gets you there, and ideally, as we live longer and live a more varied life, that our experiences and our ability to empathize with an experience becomes more naturally enhanced. In terms of the Lance thing, I question even bringing it up in the first place, and there, because it's what people talk about when they talk about the movie. As example, I'm not doing crystal meth when I'm playing a meth addict.
Yeah.
But I am hanging out with people who are. That's for my own understanding. So that we're at least not bullshitting the story or ourselves or a community that has been touched by those experiences. So getting near things is why I like being a storyteller. So I have a better sense of the reality. And if I can sense that reality, I don't have to think so hard. And I really don't like having to think that hard on the set.
Yeah.
So the joy, you kind of get best of both worlds, which is an intimate, physical, sensual experience of what this world is about. I've done it in a safe enough way. And I went through doctor supervision, but it was something that I just felt that I wanted to do for me. I didn't tell anybody on the set. I did it privately. And I did my homework on it. It's not like I'm buying, drugs in some locker room. I was going through very conscious help and in a safe environment, getting my levels checked. Because part of him felt like that character wanted that, and that's what it wanted. I didn't feel that I had to go put a bullet in somebody, and that's just, you try to get warm to a feeling. That's it. It's just trying to get warm to a feeling. And I've taken a lot of risks in the past that maybe weren't so smart and weren't necessary. Because I certainly don't want to encourage young actors to go out and hurt themselves.
Yeah.
But what I do encourage is go live your life. It's not about acting class and it ain't about watching movies. It's go be a person and go exercise your empathy and understanding of why. Just ask why. And sometimes that will bring you into contact with things that will challenge your sense of moral, ethical values. And you have to be right with yourself at the end of your life.
What's your overall assessment of this business and your place in it? Like, are you optimistic about this? Are you getting what you need as an artist? Is it getting easier? Is the good parts of this whole thing outweighing the bad?
Yeah, a brutal optimist. We need story. I need story. If I can ask questions and learn more about being a person, it's a great life. It's not hard in the way of manual labor hard. It's confusing in other ways. I've been able to work with some people that I really admire and ask questions as peers rather than just as fans, and that feels really good. And then sometimes it's kind of disappointing, and it's a wonderful leveler working for a long period of time. I still get very moved and excited with the potential of telling a story. More so now in a way that as a father and as a human, I know that time is so limited. And as a Navy SEAL said, don't rush to your death. It's nice to be here. So getting to ask the questions of being here in the woods and leave no trace, as example, felt like a great way to understand being a person a little bit those few months. Because life's confusing for everybody. My job just says it's confusing. What does that feel like? I take pleasure in that confusion.
Ben Foster, Maestro, thank you
Pleasure.
so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
Hope you
for
come
your care.
back.
Let's do it.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. It's produced by Spencer Ring. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.